It's time, it's time, it's time. Who said that? And which movie is it from? Yeah, it's Alice and, of course, Twilight. Well, that was from New Moon. So, hello and welcome to episode 7 of Tarot by the Hour. Let me just see. Yep, it is on YouTube. Okay, I can turn this off. Today is the moment where I'm going to geek out a little bit about Twilight because I've been going down this rabbit hole of Twilight in comparison to Mormonism for the past week or two. And there's this one channel in particular, like her channel is relatively somewhat new. Her name's Corinne, and she makes these videos where she talks about the characters in the Twilight story and she analyzes them in a way that is not very favorable when it comes to them. And I have to say, I agree with her on a lot of the things that she talks about because the Cullens, she calls it they're cosplaying as humans, and I fully agree with that. And that they don't actually care about anyone but themselves. They might not even care as much about the whole family situation as like only their partner and their individual interests. So that channel is definitely worth checking out. I also, like for today's topic, I have quite a few links in the description box. There is one that goes to the Quileute website because what Stephanie Meyer did in here was very not so good cultural appropriation, and the Quileutes got the short end of the stick in all of this. And so in order to set something straight, and if anyone wants more information, the website to all of their stuff is down below. I have also included a link to an ex-Mormon who did a reaction video to the South Park episode that came out in 2003 about Mormonism. That is definitely worth watching. I have included the so-called banned cartoon that was produced about the church, not from the church, which explains what they believe in. So that is also there. And I have included something else. Oh, yeah. One thing before I go into the whole Twilight thing, the Book of Mormon is changeable, basically. And that means that they claim that they have the most correct book on Earth. Some people joke that it's the most corrected book on Earth because the things in here, like as far as gospel goes, they keep changing. So there's new editions all the time. The last change was made in 2024. Towards the end of the year, there was an article that came out, and it was talked about how the introduction in this book, where is it? Like this thing here. That one is the one that keeps changing because the original claim from Joseph Smith was, and he's the founder of the church, the first prophet, and he said that the Native Americans in America are direct and principal descendants of Jerusalem. So there were two tribes that came from Jerusalem, 600 BC. There was another tribe called the Jaredites. They came like earlier after the Tower of Babel. And so somehow they ended up in America, but they all got destroyed or something. But in 600 BC, the Lamanites and Nephites were the ones that were in America coming from Jerusalem. And so as soon as they got to America, they split up into these two groups. And they also had this huge battle. Millions of people died, allegedly. No evidence has ever been found. And one of them survived, and he wrote down the entire story on golden plates, which was then translated by Joseph Smith into this. And So yeah, they claim that basically all the Native Americans are like their ancestors are from Jerusalem. The problem with this is like, and I have multiple versions of the book. I have a bigger one. My cat, I think this was Amy, like she got into that. So this is the original version that I have from like the one was from 1981 in English, and I have the 85 German translation. This was the first one that I got. And I got this in 2001. And this one was written in 2003, translated to German in 2004. Hi, Phoenix Maya. Thanks for being here. And here it has already changed. So in this book, they claim that the Native Americans are like the principal descendants of Jerusalem, the Jerusalem people. Here they changed it because, like, with the whole DNA evidence coming out, not supporting that theory, they said so the Lamanites were among the ancestors of the Native Americans. And now in 2024, they have rewritten this thing entirely. So they didn't just change that one sentence, but they completely left it out. They changed the entire text. They don't really talk about the 600 BC Jerusalem kind of thing much anymore, because when science disproved that whole thing and said that the Native Americans are actually related to people from East Asia, so that means they walked like from Russia across to Alaska over the Bering Strait into America. That's what the evidence of science suggests. So it has nothing to do with Jerusalem. Otherwise, it would have been like Western Asia, which could be like Jerusalem adjacent in a way, but no. And the 0.6% European descent in the Native Americans is suggested based on everything after Columbus, people coming in, mixing and mingling, and, mixing the DNA with European DNA. And so that's how that happened. Okay, so that was a little bit of that. So when I was watching Corinne's videos, like everything that she described, suddenly it made so much sense. Like when I read this and I found out that the author is a practicing Mormon, I found aspects of that in the whole story based on how tight-knit the family is. And I'm talking about the Cullens here, because that is one thing that they do put a lot of emphasis on in the religion, that the family sticks together, which I always thought is a good thing. Like that is something that a lot of families are missing these days because everyone's just distracted doing their own thing. And I always liked that about them. But in Corinne's videos, the way that she was describing that, like more and more, I was like, oh my God, that is like so Mormon. And this is Mormon. And then I went through the books again, like I listened to the audiobooks, and I was like, yeah, like the more and more I hear it, the more and more Mormon this gets. So yeah, this kind of prompted me to want to talk about this a little bit. And then I also, another thing that I wanted to do is to combine this with tarot, of course. And Julie from Peekaboo Rose, she, in one of their last videos, Three Girls, One Deck, she showed one of her handmade decks that she has. It's a majors only for Twilight. And I was like, thanks, girl. That's the inspiration that I needed. And so I sat down and I made a list for the majors, pulling from all the characters that are named in the book. And I also did the court cards, also pulling from all the names. And I'm going to start with the court cards. I'm just going to read the list that I have. And I do have a visual presentation for the majors. Yeah, so I'm just going to start with the court cards. And originally I was thinking like if I should, group the suits into different groups, that would also mean having the minors with those characters. And so originally I thought the wands with, the quick energy and hot and fiery and, all that kind of stuff could be representative of the wolves, maybe. The cups would then be the humans. The swords would be the villains. And that goes for all the villains, not just the Volturi. And the pentacles would be the vampires slash Cullens and friends kind of thing. So what we receive as the good vampires. But then I thought, that is limiting it very much, especially when it comes to the court cards. And so I threw all of that out the window and decided I'm going to pull from the entire pool of characters for whatever card I see it fitting. So for the wands, I chose Seth Clearwater for the page because he's curious, adventurous, energetic, optimistic. So I kind of see that fitting in a way. For the Knight of Wands, I chose Garrett because I always call the Knight of Wands the F-boy. You know, he's going to be the, oh yeah, we had a good time, but don't expect me to call you. So impulsive, passionate, charming, but a very free, loving spirit. For the Queen of Wands, I chose Kate from the Denali Coven. She's strong-willed, also very charismatic. She's confident, and she is fiercely protective of her loved ones. And ironically, Garrett and Kate, they then end up together. And yeah, he's going to become a one-woman man because of her. So the queen has that power. And for the King of Wands, I chose Sam Yulee because he's a natural leader. He is very bound by duty. He uses his instinct and he is guiding with strength. So he's trying to do what's best for everyone. Sometimes maybe missing the mark a little in this whole authority thing, but overall, pretty good. Now for the cups. For the page, I chose Angela Weber because she's gentle, compassionate, she is emotionally open, she has a romantic side to her. And in, what was it, in Eclipse, when Bella goes over to her house and they're doing the whole, you know, writing the names and addresses on the envelopes for her graduation stuff, and she's helping Angela, they have girl talk. And the moment that Angela notices that Bella doesn't want to talk about it anymore, like the whole thing that she's going through with Edward and Jake, she's not going to press the subject, unlike Jessica, who would have kept asking and, you know, like pulling teeth. But Angela doesn't do that. So for that, I put her on the Page of Cups. For the Knight of Cups, I got Jacob Black. He's romantic. He can be vulnerable. He's always looking for connection, but he's also a bit idealistic. So yeah, in this whole idea of romance that he has, he also sometimes shows some red flags, but he's young. He'll eventually grow and evolve, at least emotionally, hopefully, maybe, we don't know. Depends on Renesmee, I guess. For the Queen of Cups, I chose Emily Young. She is a very gentle and compassionate character. She is the maternal figure to the pack, despite her tragedy. So she doesn't hold it against Sam. She is very understanding. She takes care of the boys when they're doing their wolf thing. You know, she is fully in the know, and she helps them as best as she can. We see her in the movie baking muffins and all that. So yeah, she takes care of the boys like a mom. And for the King of Cups, I chose Charlie because he is very intuitive. He kind of senses that there is stuff going on. I mean, as a police chief, you have to have a certain, you know, radar for things, but he doesn't really catch on, does he? Or maybe he doesn't want to know. In some cases, ignorance is bliss. And he is also steady, and he offers a quiet strength. And with Bella, he can be emotionally open. Does he always give the best advice? Probably not, but he's trying. He is trying. For the swords, for the Page of Swords, I chose Jane because she's very sharp, she's very observant, and she is ready to strike just like that. And she's very calculating. Like she she knows that what she does has an effect, and she uses that, and not just when Aro tells her to do something, but yeah, she's a typical swords character. Like it's all in her mind. Like her power is in her mind, so she doesn't actually engage in any kind of physical activity, which we see in the wannabe battle in Breaking Dawn, because she's running around like a chicken with her head cut off, kind of when all the other ones that would normally protect her are gone, and her mind power doesn't work anymore. So what to do? So everything is like very swords with her. For the Knight of Swords, I chose Caius. He is ruthless, he's impatient, he is fearless, he's aggressive, and very impulsive. We also see this, like he does not have the patience for anything, even though he is so old. He's like, what is he, like over 2,000 years old? And he is just not in the mood for, like Aro, he takes his time. Marcus, he also doesn't really have the necessity to rush things. But Kai's is like, oh, please, can we get on with this now? I got dinner plans. Like, my dinner is coming right there. Hurry up. And so for that, I put him with the Knight of Swords because it's just cutting through the stuff. For the Queen of Swords, Victoria. She is sharp-witted, very strategic, straight to the point, and she is cunning and also manipulative. But unlike the knight, she has a little bit more patience. So she plays the long game, but she will not let up of what she wants. So when she decides that she's going to go after Bella in order to avenge James and take revenge on Edward, she's not going to stop until that is done, because for her, time has also lost all meaning. She's just like, I have a goal, I'm going to do that. And for the King of Swords, I chose Aro. Also manipulative, strategic, controlling, and also playing the long game. So he will even play this longer than Victoria. Like, he's the perfect chess player. He moves the pieces into the position where he wants them to, which is why he always has those witnesses that will then be there for the mock trial, to say, okay, someone here has done wrong, but I will pardon someone who's repentant and take them into my coven, and the whole thing that he wants to do with Alice and Edward as well. So for that, I put him with the King of Swords. Now for the Pentacles, for the page, I chose Jessica Stanley. She's ambitious, she's very practical, and she's socially motivated. She also got valedictorian, like we see that in the movie. Her speech was really good. And yeah, like she's very much in the here and now, but she's also thinking of her future. So even though she has all this boy drama and whatever else going on, but she still focuses on her schoolwork. She makes sure she gets good grades, and she wants to be someone, because I think her motivation is she wants to get out of Forks. She wants to live. She wants to experience something, and she knows she has to put the work in for that. So she does it. And for that, yeah, Page of Pentacles. For the Knight, I chose Jasper Hale, because he is methodical, he's reliable, steady, but cautious. So when he was like the head of the army of Maria, he also goes on and on about how he was the youngest major in the Texas cavalry and all that stuff. So he has that soldier-like persona. So he lives by a certain code of ethics when it comes to military and how to do things. Like if someone gives him an order, he will do it even if he doesn't agree with it. I think the only time that he went against that was when his friend Peter and Peter's mate Charlotte wanted to make a run for it. He didn't really stop them. But other than that, when Maria said something, Jasper did it. And it's the same thing now with Alice. When Alice says something, Jasper will do it. So for the Queen of Pentacles, I put down Esme because she is family-oriented and nurturing, or at least so it seems. Because when you really look into it, she seems to be only interested, well, she's doing what Carlisle does. So she is the typical Mormon first wife. And that means her opinion is the same as her husband's. She will never go against her husband, which we see in the scene where they sit at the dining room table in Midnight Sun discussing if Bella should die or not after the accident. And so Carlisle and Esme are sitting there holding hands. Esme, she doesn't say anything. She only wants Edward to stay. She doesn't want him to leave. So besides Carlisle, she cares about Edward. And I think that's also because for the first, I think about was it 12 years or so, 20 years? It was just her, Edward, and Carlisle together before Rosalie ever joined them. And so this was kind of like a situation with like husband and child in a way. Like they were playing family for quite some time, which is why she's more attached to Edward than to anyone else. Plus, before that, she had lost her kid before she became a vampire. So there's a lot of like the substitute mother energy in that whole space. So I think she does to some extent care about the others, but if she had to choose, Edward would be her favorite. And yeah, so whatever happens, she wants to keep Edward around. She doesn't want to lose Edward. We also see this when he sits by the piano again and then he starts composing the lullaby. She's right there with him and says, "Don't stop playing. Don't mind what the others are doing. Do this." And yeah, so Edward is her favorite, hands down. Like, even though as mom, you're not supposed to have favorites, I guess. Oh, well. And so for the King of Pentacles, I chose Carlisle because he's the leader, he's a healer, he's the provider of stability and abundance. Although I would argue the abundance provider is actually Alice because she's the one working with the stock market, knowing what's going on and making them rich. And when we're talking rich, like the Cullens are actually rich. They're billionaires. I didn't even register that at first when I read the books. But I think it was in Breaking Dawn, where Edward says it, that Alice, she's the one who's dressing the entire family. And even in Midnight Sun, he says that. And he also mentions that Alice never lets anyone in her family wear the same thing twice. And we're talking entire outfits, like underwear, socks, t-shirts, sweaters, pants, scarves, shirts, ties, whatever. Everything can only be worn once, and after that, it goes into donation probably. And it's designer brands. They're not just going shopping at Target. So Alice is picking out the high fashion stuff. And imagine just for one person having designer brands for 365 days, complete outfits. And now multiply that by 7 over I don't know how many years. And then you have to have a really big bank account to make that happen. So yeah, they're actually billionaires. And the fact that Edward can simply just bribe her with a yellow Porsche and then it's there, like, yeah, they're rich. So yeah, so I guess the provider of abundance could fall more on Alice, but Carlisle is the one who's, basically head of the household. And so for that, I put him into the king position. All right. So for the rest, I have a little presentation, but something that I noticed before we get into that, and that I can't believe I haven't noticed this before, is like the way that these people are described and their mannerisms. Like I said, it is really, really Mormon. And for the longest time, I thought it was simply because, okay, the author is Mormon. She grew up in that. And so the whole like family, the way they go together, like, okay, that's the extent of it. But no, like every last bit of it, the things that they say, the things that they do, how they react, how they treat others. Like this book is also like full of, or more breaking down than this, full of racism when it comes to how the Quileutes are depicted, because in the Mormon history, skin color that is not white is always seen as a curse. So for them, like in the Mormon religion, people with black skin color could not even like join the church and obtain the priesthood, which is what the man of the household gets, until 1978. So they were racist like that. And then, of course, they changed because Civil War, all of that. They were not in favor of the civil rights movement. They were not in favor of that as well. But they had to go with the times. So they made changes once again. Now, people of color can join, can have the priesthood and all of that. But I doubt that one of them will ever be the prophet, because their racism is so deeply rooted in them. And also, even though in the movie, Laurent is of dark color, and even the other ones like Xena and Saphirina and all that, they have their dark skin color, but not in the original. Stephenie Meyer never wrote any black vampires. And she even says this in the guide, where it talks about the whole skin thing. And she says the pale vampire skin is a product of vampire venom's transformative process. The venom leaches all pigment from the skin as it changes the human skin into the more indestructible vampire form. Regardless of original ethnicity, a vampire's skin will be exceptionally pale, aka white. The hue varies slightly, with darker-skinned humans having a barely describable olive tone to their vampire skin. So they basically look a little bit sun-kissed, but that's about it. So yeah, Laurent is white in the original stuff, and even Xena and Saphirina wouldn't have been like they were depicted in the movies. So, and then she says, a light shade remains the same. All forms of skin pigmentation like freckles, moles, birthmarks, age marks, scars, and tattoos disappear during the transformation. So, and that goes hand in hand with what the Mormons believe in. There is, like I said in the description box, I have this banned cartoon that explains it a little bit better, because before the earth was populated, they believed that in heaven, they also had like a big meeting, and Lucifer and Jesus had different ideas of how to rule the earth and how this whole human experience was going to go. And the people that sided with Lucifer, Lucifer became the devil and they became the demons, and they were cast out. And then the people who sided with Jesus, they were the how are they called? They're white and exceedingly fair and delightsome. The fair and delightsome, that is a very known thing in the Mormon religion. And the people who chose to stay neutral in this whole thing, they got the black skin color as a curse. They also believe that the black people are actually cursed with the mark of Cain. So they are the descendants of Cain, and because Cain killed his brother, for that black skin curse. And that's how the Mormons see it. Hey, Carla, thanks for being here. So, and that's why you will not, in the original story, find vampires of color. Like if you look at the guide where they are shown, you can see Laurent is white. I don't know if Xena and Saphirina are in there. Like I said, I don't have that book. I just got some images off of the internet to look at. But yeah, with that description, once they're bitten, once they change, all that changes too. They change into beautiful marble statues, and that marble happens to be white. And we see a lot of the racism towards the Native Americans, like they're represented by the Quileutes here. And the Mormons in the story are the Cullens, The Volturi kind of, in a way, represent more like the old church, like Catholic, because they have the old rules. And Carlisle, he is actually Joseph Smith. I mean, you can even see it in that picture where he was at the Volturi. Compare that to Joseph Smith and how he is depicted. I can't believe I never made that connection until like a week ago. And yeah, so Carlisle, he introduces that new way of life, just like Joseph Smith introduces a new way of religion to the people. He says, I have the reformed gospel. We're going to do everything new from now on because they have fallen from grace. Like Carlisle has the vegetarianism, and he says, okay, we don't need to feed off of people. We can do this with just animals. We're going to be better. We're going to be helping. And this is basically him being the prophet. He is the founder of this new way, like Joseph Smith. Right? I mean, I can't believe I never even made that connection. And it's thanks to those videos that Corinne makes that I even saw that, because she was showing those other pictures there of Carla, and I was like, wait a minute, Mormonism, that looks like Joseph Smith. And so, yeah, so Carlisle, he is the prophet in this whole story. So, and the way that he changes people, that's like converting them to the religion. And of course, they have to follow the rules. Just like in Mormonism, there is no coffee. Well, now they kind of changed it after Mitt Romney was seen drinking Diet Coke during his presidential campaign back then. So Coke is okay, but not coffee. So just hot caffeine is forbidden. No smoking, no drinking, no sex before marriage, aka Edward, we're going to get married first. So yeah, like all of these things are embedded in the rule book, this one. And Carlisle, he enforces that. Esme behaves like the typical first wife. Now, they don't practice polygamy here because Joseph Smith, he actually had 34 or 38 wives, a lot of them. The youngest one was 14, and he even had like mother-sister pairs in his harem. So there was a lot going on. And yeah, so there's like so much tied into this. And Stephenie Meyer, she is a very believing Mormon because she did get married in the temple. So she must have the temple recommend, which is not easy to get. You have to follow certain steps and all of that. So yeah. And when it comes to the Native Americans, how they are treated here, like Alice and Rosalie, they call Jacob dog and pack of mutts and all that kind of stuff. Rosalie takes this bowl and forms it into a dog bowl and puts it on the floor for Jake to eat and all that. So there really is a lot of discrimination in the way that they treat Jacob. We also see a visual representation of that in the movies when you look at the house that Jake lives in, the house that Bella lives in, and the house that the Cullens live in. So Jake's house and even Emily's house, they look very simple, very modest, and they are always depicted as kind of savage because you see the boys, as soon as they have the wolf thing going, shirtless with, ripped off jeans and barefoot. So this is going into this whole like Native Americans are savage. They're very simple and primitive and all that, which is depicted in the movie. And the Bella and Charlie, they have the typical American house, very normal, nothing fancy, just like the regular house. And then the Cullens, of course, the Mormon church is rich. Like if you want to Google how much money they have, and if you compare that to how much money they had in the 90s, that went up fast and a lot. And like in the Mormon church, you have to pay your tithing before taxes. You have to pay 10% of your money before taxes, then tax on top of everything. And from whatever is left, you may pay your own bills. Even if that means you don't have enough money to pay the bills, church comes first. So that's why they have so much money. Okay. And so Stephenie Meyer, when she was researching for the book, she just went online and she looked, okay, is there some kind of tribe there? And, you know, the whole La Push thing, that is real. La Push exists, First Beach exists, the Quileutes live there. And she is, from what I saw on the internet, allegedly known for not wanting to do research. So she just took part of the story and ran with it. And that is the thing where she says, okay, Quileutes are descended from wolves. The original story goes that in one of their legends, there was a trickster god that came to that area and turned original wolves into humans. And that those are ancestors of the Quileutes. They have also other stories. And so she only took that part and turned it into the whole Quileutes wolf story. But she has also done a lot of damage to them because nobody else like wants to know the real stuff. And tourists have been going there to their territory, you know, taking pictures, looking at everything, and kind of destroying the nature in the process. And the Quileutes, as far as we know, they have never been compensated for any of this, even though she took their story and put it in the book. But they are fighting a lot of things there. Like, for example, they have erosion from like the water coming in with, you know, the water level rising. And so they actually have to move buildings like the school and some other stuff to higher ground. They had a whole, you know, kind of like a GoFundMe thing. And Stephenie Meyer could have easily helped out. And if she had done her research properly and if she had actually talked to them, they probably could have come to some kind of agreement. But no, her money only went to the church. And so the Quileutes got nothing. Thankfully, because they got fame through Twilight, it was easier for them to make some money, and they were actually able to relocate some of the stuff, like the school, for example. And they're really struggling with that kind of stuff. And also the misconceptions that have been brought onto them because of this. And yeah, so the way that they're depicted by Stephenie Meyer goes hand in hand with the racism towards Native Americans in their real religion. And yeah, so yeah, there's just so much stuff. And the books differ from the movies, of course. And that's why when I'm talking about like how I put them on the majors, I'm going with the book versions. Oh, and Debbie is here. Hello, thanks for being here. Okay, and what else? So yeah, there's like once you see this, you can't unsee it. And I also have the, like I said, I have the different versions of the book. So one is the original one where they are the people from Jerusalem, principal ancestors of the Native Americans. And then when the DNA stuff came out, that's not true. They said, okay, they are among the ancestors. And then in 2024, they changed the thing completely. No mention of the Native Americans anymore. And yeah, but like the way they're depicted, like savage, simple-minded, and all that kind of stuff, that's part of their religion, basically. It's Mormonism right there. Like everything in Twilight is tied to Mormonism. And yeah, so that's the point that I wanted to make very quickly. Now, I know it's a bit pixely up there, but we're just going to go with it. I looked at all the characters in the story, and I wanted to see how I can put them on the majors and if that would actually work. I just need to situate myself a little bit here again. Please hold the line. Not easy here. Okay, so if you want, like, I don't know, have you here in the chat, Carla, Debbie, Phoenix, I don't know if you're still there. Have you actually read the books or just watched the movies? Sip, sip, everyone. Yeah, because I'm like, I listen to the books every day. Like, that's my good night thing. Fun fact, if you listen to Midnight Sun, I like that voice in particular because Jake Abel is the one reading for Edward. And for those who don't know who that name belongs to, he was one of the love interests in Stephenie Meyer's Host. And most of us know him better as the youngest Winchester brother in Supernatural. He was the one that was in the cage as Michael. And he's the one reading Midnight Sun. And I very much enjoy that. And yeah, but I alternate between Twilight, Midnight Sun, Eclipse, Breaking Dawn. So, but I don't go to New Moon because Bella's just too whiny in that one. Yeah, like the Twilight book, the first one, this one, is going to be 20 years old in October. 20 years ago, this was published. That makes me feel old because I remember I bought the first book, Twilight, after the movie came out. And that was in 2008, 2009. Shortly after that, I bought the first book and then immediately the second and the third. And I think Breaking Dawn was just about to be published. So I got it fresh off the printing press, kind of. So yeah, it's been a day since we've had them. Okay, so first, of course, we're going to start with the Fool. Do you want to guess with me in the chat? Which character would you put on the Fool card? Just intuitively, who would you think? Any ideas? Oh, I wish my neck would crack. Okay, I'm going to show you who I picked. I picked Emmett. Now, the obvious thing for Emmett would be strength because he's like super strong. That's his power and everything. But he has this very childlike mind. He doesn't hold grudges. That's the way that he's described. And when in Midnight Sun, at the very beginning, when Edward starts describing his siblings, he's like, Emmett is like a lake with like clear water, crystal clear water. He would never think anything that he wouldn't say out loud. So there is no hidden agenda with him. He is like, when it comes to killing Bella, because Bella is then his singer, Edward's singer. He's just like, just get it over with because Emmett had 2 of those encounters and he just got it done quickly. He's also on Rosalie's side when it comes to killing Bella after the accident. So like he doesn't really do too much with it. But then he's also okay with Edward being with her. Just whatever you do, just at least decide. Stop moping about it. Just get to it. So he's also kind of depicted like the typical jock, like the quarterback. There's not too much up here going on. He's just doing stuff and he's enjoying himself, living the time of his life. He's also playing with his food, like he likes fighting with the grizzly bears. And then his shirt gets destroyed and he's like, oh, I just got the shirt from Rose. And then he kills the bear. And then he looks at Edward, who's wearing a white button-down shirt when they're hunting. And he's like, didn't you eat anything? And Edward says, I did, but I don't eat like a savage because there's not a single wrinkle, not a single drop of blood, anything. So for that reason, I chose Emmett. And yeah, I think he fits the Fool very well. Now, next up is the Magician. Any guess who could be the Magician? And you can just put like all your guesses already in the chat while we go along, because I know there's always like a time difference, like a few seconds. So Or if you have any specific cards where you think, okay, that would fit, just put it in the chat. I'm thinking you mean Carlisle, the doctor. That is a possibility. I chose Alice. Yeah, Laurent or Alice. Yeah. And the reason why I chose Alice is because she is the one who's like pulling all the strings in the background. Because if you really pay attention to all of this, first of all, Alice is not Bella's friend. She never does what Bella wants. It's even like after Edward and Bella got engaged, Alice is like, Edward, I need to talk to Bella. And Edward is already like, you're going to ruin my day, aren't you? And she's got this so like made up in her mind that she's going to be friends with Bella, but she sees Bella as more of like a play toy, like a new doll that she gets to dress eventually, and someone that she can boss around, because Bella never gets to do what she wants. The same thing is true for Edward. Like they completely take away her agency. When Bella is supposed to go and visit Jacob, when Charlie says, hey, Jake is not doing so well, why don't you go visit him? She wants to. And then they disable her car. And Alice is also, if you really look into it, if you like look at it from her angle, she is the one constantly talking to Edward about it. Like he's on the fence. Like at first, he doesn't like Bella at all. He's like another plain Jane. And if she hadn't had that shield, there wouldn't be anything interesting for Edward about Bella. And if she hadn't been his singer, Bella would have been just another Jessica Stanley to him. Nothing special. He never would have given her a second glance. He was even annoyed by the fact that everyone kept talking about her before ever smelling her. But because of the smell and because of the shield, suddenly she got interesting. And suddenly the plain Jane got beautiful. Go figure. Because Alice was also constantly putting this image in his mind. And I think in a way, she is kind of neurolinguistically programming him into that direction, telling him, I don't think you can leave her anymore, and all that stuff. And then he's like, yeah, you're right. I think it's not just the visions, but because we also know that her visions depend on whatever people decide. That includes her own decisions, which we've seen in New Moon, when she tells Aro, yeah, she's going to be one of us. I will change her myself. And then Aro gets to see the vision. That was Alice's decision. So I think she has a lot to do with that. Oh, you guys are having a storm? Oh, I hope all goes well. Yeah. Thanks for being here. And yeah, so I'm not sure like if Alice had never said anything, I don't know how much Edward would actually have fallen for Bella, or if it really would have been just that, oh, she smells so good, I want to eat her kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe he would have left for a while. We don't know. I think Alice plays a major part in that. And for that, I put her as the magician. And for the High Priestess, which you could also consider Alice for that because of her power, but I picked Siobhan. She is the leader of the Irish Coven, and her power is linked to intuition. So she's a very intuitive person. And also, a side note, the casting for some of these characters, Siobhan is supposed to be 20 years old. This actress, she looks good, but not 20. So some of these casting choices, I don't know, they don't really make sense. Yeah, but so she works from her intuition, and she has the power to manifest things. So when there is something that she really wants and she has a strong intuition about it, she can actually turn that into a reality. How exactly that works, I don't know. Like I said, I didn't read the guide. I just got the cliff notes basically. And so she, I mean, knowing that would have been a great help in the fight against the Volturi. Like, hey, let's manifest a good outcome, maybe, just a thought. But yeah, so she's supposed to be 20. Mm, Yeah, I think they could have maybe cast someone else, but her body type fits the description. And this is a fun fact. This is the one vampire that Edward was gushing about. Like, this is what he is visually, physically attracted to. But she didn't have any interest in Edward. Okay, that was that. So next is the Empress. And yeah, for that, I chose Esme. Emily also could have been a contender for that one, but yeah, like Esme, she simply has like the biggest family in terms of the most kids here. And, you know, for all intents and purposes, I can see an empress in her because in her human life, she wanted to be a teacher. And then she had a child. She had a very abusive relationship. Like her husband was very abusive. The child died 2 days after giving birth. And so she could not cope with that loss. So everything in her was always geared towards, you know, teaching, motherhood, and all that kind of stuff. And for that, I put her with the Empress. And that makes this one easy as well. The Emperor, so he's the one reigning over the kingdom. Basically, he brings the stability. And also, yeah, with the casting choice, I mean, nothing against Peter Facinelli, but Carlisle is supposed to be 23 years old, and that doesn't work. So when Twilight was filmed, Robert Pattinson, he was 22 years old. So just like as soon as Twilight was done, by the time of the premiere, he was as old as Carlisle is supposed to be. So this is once again a little bit too old. And Esme is supposed to be 26. So yeah, they made them look even older with some of the wigs and like makeup choices and everything that they did. So I don't know. Yeah, so the Emperor for Carlisle. And next up, we have the Hierophant. For that one, I chose Amun. He is, in the entire story, the oldest vampire that we ever get to meet, so to speak. He is from the Egyptian coven, and that one even predates the Romanian coven a little bit. And yeah, so he has a lot of knowledge that he has gathered over the years, and he yeah, like part of the Egyptian, I mean, since, wait, he is from before 2500 BC. So with that also comes like the Egyptian heritage, because they did have a very rich culture with specific rituals and all that stuff. And I imagine some of that would bleed into the new vampire life, because they don't just turn full on Dracula and like Transylvania stuff, because living in Egypt, like that would have been influencing his life as well, I imagine. And so all of that probably also influenced his way of dealing with things. Now we know that not too soon after, um, the Romanian coven, like they went head to head. The Romanian coven won. The Egyptian coven was almost decimated. So Amun survived with his mate Kebi, and he later found Benjamin doing magic tricks on the street, and he changed Benjamin because he snatched him up because of his talents, turned him into the Avatar. And funny thing, Benjamin's partner, Tia, she's actually a distant cousin. So here we also have another aspect of Mormonism, the distant cousins, or even in the fundamentalist groups like the Order, the Kingston Clan, or the Warren Jeffs groups, even siblings get married, first cousins, siblings, father, daughter, like there's a lot of, we don't even want to get into that. But yeah, so that's like for the whole living long, having lots of knowledge and all that stuff, I chose him for the Hierophant. Now, next, I have the Lover's card. And I guess most people would expect me to put Edward and Bella on here, but I actually have all three because this whole thing is a love triangle. So, Bella, like if Edward wouldn't be so mesmerizing or addictive, we don't know if she would have chosen him. I mean, he says it himself, like everything about me is designed to make you come to me. My voice, my smell, and you can't fight me off. I'm the apex predator here. And she goes after that. Also, because one thing that is never talked about, they always just talk about how toxic these relationships are, but Bella is actually also a victim of abuse. She is highly traumatized because Renee is, let's call it what it is, a shitty mom. I don't like Renee as a mother one bit because Renee was very selfish as a mom. Here's also something that is similar to Mormonism. Kids have to start working in the household from an early age. So I think Bella started taking care of the household when she was 10. And because of the mom, Bella was never able to have any hobbies outside of school. The only thing that she was basically able to do was this dance studio thing, which was in walking distance of their house, so that Renee wouldn't have to have time taken out of her busy whatever schedule to drive her daughter to a hobby or something, God forbid. And the weekends always have to be kept open so that they can go on trips. And Bella, of course, had to go with her. So there were never any after school activities or anything possible because of Renee. And, Renee was constantly switching jobs. I think she had an authority problem. And so she quit a lot, not because she was bored. And she made Bella become an adult so very early on. And all of that plays a part into like the way that Bella behaves. And they always joke like, oh, she's like 35, she's so grown up and blah, blah, blah. No, she didn't have a choice. Her childhood was taken away from her. And when she goes to Charlie, she even has this notion, oh, I didn't realize how much Charlie needs me. But as soon as she moves in, she takes care of the household. Charlie has been living by himself this entire time. He knows how to do the dishes. He knows how to do the laundry. And he doesn't need Bella to be a live-in maid. But that's what she does. She cooks, she cleans, she does the laundry, everything. And Charlie lets it happen. Now, I get that his job at the police is stressful and requires a lot, but then again, it's Forks with over 3,000 people. What's the worst that happens there? Riley goes missing. That's probably the worst thing that he ever had to deal with. And so Bella is highly traumatized and she's a victim of abuse. And that is also even that parental neglect and everything is a form of domestic violence. And so it's no wonder that she feels drawn to someone like Edward, who is also very toxic in his behavior. Like he's stalking her. He calls it being protective, but he doesn't even allow her to do things like go and see Jacob as soon as he has the wolf thing going on. And he forbids it. And he, tells her what to do. And she listens and she does it for the most part. Like she doesn't really go against him. So that is I don't know if that is rooted in love. I'm sure over time they develop something like love, but it doesn't start that way. And for her to, after just a few weeks or so, say that she's completely in love with him, no, that's your trauma speaking, baby. That's what it is. And Jacob, I think if Edward hadn't been in the picture, Jacob and Bella would have had a really good chance. And if the whole misunderstanding after the cliff diving hadn't happened, and if Edward hadn't been under the misconception that Bella was dead, Jacob and Bella could have potentially, I believe that, ended up together. There is even this moment in Eclipse where Bella and Jacob kiss before he goes into battle. And that scene, it was filmed, but it didn't make the movie cut, where she and it's in the books. She suddenly, while kissing him, has this image in her head of her and Jacob growing old together and having kids together. So it is in the back of her mind, and that is something that she can choose freely. With Edward, it's like an addiction, and we see this in New Moon. When Edward is gone, she's going cold turkey. The night sweats, the night terrors, the screaming, which is a bit over the top, the total depression and all of that. She is like an addict going cold turkey. Like her fix has been taken away from her, and like she's addicted to him. And he is controlling and manipulative, and he's addicted to the blood and all that stuff. So it's yeah, that's addiction. That is nothing romantic. That is nothing to lust after and be like, oh, I want a relationship like Bella and Edward. No, you don't. So for that reason, I put all three of them here onto the cards. Yeah, a lot of them. Like, if you watch all 8 episodes of Cinema Therapy that they did on all of the Twilight movies, they have a better way of explaining it from like a psychotherapy kind of angle. But yeah, like none of this is good at all. So for the Chariot, I basically chose Bella's truck, but I also chose this moment here where, you know, the truck plays an important role because she's almost being crushed against it, and Edward has to make a choice that will then change everything. It will change the course of her life, his and his family's life forever. So this one moment here was the deciding factor for the rest of the story. If this hadn't happened, a lot of the other stuff also would have never happened. And we don't know if he ever would have spoken to her or if he would have just kept his distance or I don't know what. But like for the sake of her car, where it was parked and the ice and everything. So I chose that as the Chariot, quick and simple. Now for strength, I chose Tanya. She is the leader of the Denali Coven. And she is how old? She is approximately from 1000 AD. So she's like 1,000 years old at this point. And she has an interest in Edward. And just like Edward was interested in Siobhan, she's interested in Edward, but none of them are interested in the other one in the same way. And so she, as the leader, she also has the responsibility to look after her other sisters after the mother was taken away by the Volturi because of that immortal child situation. And so she had to deal with loss early on. So the mother has been taken away. She has been just with her sisters. She doesn't have an actual mate. And she is described as the succubus, or Edward tells her, like, you're a succubus. And she's like, the original. So she owns up to it because her and her sisters have relations with mortal men. They used to just eat them, but then they discovered they can also have fun with them. So now they let them live. I don't know if they eat them afterwards, like when they get too old or something, or they just let them move on. But yeah, so being basically alone and just having like a plaything for 1,000 years probably can get very lonely. And, you know, for everything that she had to go through emotionally, also having that unrequited interest in someone, it requires a lot of strength. Also, Edward comes running to her family to get away from Bella after almost wanting to kill the entire classroom at the beginning of the story. And so he hides out there, even though he knows that she's interested in him. But he still goes there and puts her through that. And she has to deal with that, knowing that he's never going to go for that. And she's also big enough to come to the wedding and say congratulations and all that. So that shows a lot of strength. And even at the end of the story, she still doesn't have a mate. And I hope that one day she finds one. Now, for the Hermit, I chose Alistair. He is, let's see, how old is he? He's approximately 20 years old, and he was changed in 1320. So yeah, the casting once been a bit too old, but I guess for him it works. And he has a very sad backstory. His father wanted to actually put him on the English throne, like the next Charlemagne. And so his father was a noble and he was conspiring with other people. And then he brought Alistair to London. And one of the people that he was conspiring with turns out he was a vampire. And in the tunnels under London, he was bitten by that vampire. And the father was then hoping, okay, now that my son is a vampire and all that, we can do other stuff. Alistair, as a human, was interested in falconry. So he was already a little bit closed off to people. He enjoyed his time with the falcons. And when he was changed, all the birds were, of course, scared of him. And so that really made him lose all hope for connection. And so ever since then, he's just been a complete recluse and he cannot really stand being around people. So maybe once in 100 or 200 years, he might interact with someone. And so since Carlisle is also a very calm character, like he's someone that he can interact with once in 100 years or so. And yeah, so for the most part, he is just staying out of everything. Like he's just doing his own thing. Very sad, actually. Next up, we have The Wheel. For that, I chose Alice's visions because we've already said this, they're always changing, just like the wheel. It's always changing depending on what you decide. The visions change, so same thing, making decisions in your life. They always change based on what we decide. So plain and simple, that's why I chose that. And I think this one is also a very easy and obvious choice, Charlie, because he's the chief of police and he lives by the law. He is the justice in Forks and he wants to help. He is genuinely interested in making sure that everyone is safe, even if he has his own ways of doing so. Also disabling Bella's car in Twilight to make sure that she doesn't sneak out, even though Bella is also a very good teenager. She's also very Mormon in her way. And like where would she sneak off to? But since he doesn't really have that experience with her, doesn't know what she's doing in her teenage years now, when after the meadow, when she comes home and she's a little too excited to go to bed, he just goes out and disables the car to make sure she stays home. But other than that, for the most part, he's a good dad, and he's a good justice. Like he can sense things, but like I said before, sometimes the things go over his head, but he's okay with the explanation, like, okay, need to know basis. And if I don't need to know, well, for the sake of whatever comes after, okay, I don't need to know. Like he also, just like Angela, he doesn't really stick his nose into things too much unless it is to solve a case. Now, the next one is The Hanged Man. And for that, I chose Benjamin because he does bring a fresh perspective, specifically since I chose Amun for the Hierophant. And, that one is very rooted in tradition. And Benjamin is the one, hey, let's try something new. If we're always going to stick to the old ways, nothing's ever going to change. We're never going to evolve. So he wants to bring things forward. And that's why I chose him as the Hanged Man. Next is Death. For that, I chose Bella's transformation because, she dies. And here we also have part of the Mormon story again. So she is, like, she's dying, and what they're doing with her, like they're putting her in another gown, they're washing her and all that stuff. This can be seen as a ritual that they do in Mormonism. It's called baptism for the dead. So she is taken in to the new religion. She's going to live according to their rules. She's being baptized into this by the bite. And, the whole baptism for the dead, kind of the whole washing, like water always plays a part. Like they have a little pool that they go into for that kind of thing. Like they dunk you full body, not just like sprinkling of water. on the head. But yeah, this is very reminiscent of the whole baptism for the dead ceremony, because if you don't have the chance to go and do all the covenants in order to get to the highest heaven of heavens, then even after you're dead, someone else can do it by proxy. And that's kind of like something that is being joked about, might be rooted in reality. So when you join the church, you have to bring your family tree. And then the Mormons are very big on genealogy. Like they really want to know your family tree so that they have the names to, baptize people. Because that's also their strength in numbers also comes from the dead members, not just the living ones. And that's why they also call themselves the fastest growing church, which in part might be true, but they count the dead ones as well. Okay, now next we have temperance. For that one, I chose Zafrina. And no one really knows how old she is or when she was born. It's not said anywhere. And yeah, like in the movie, she looks like this. In Stephenie Meyer's story, she would probably not look like this very much, more like an olive complexion. So she might look more Italian than anything else. But yeah, she doesn't say much, but she has a way of keeping things balanced. And in the movie, we see this by, when Irina is killed by the Volturi and her sisters, they want to go attack right away. She's the one who blinds them and keeps the moment in control, even though the other ones are, holding the sisters. But she has a way of stopping people in their tracks. And, let's think about it. Let's not do anything hasty. So she can use her gift for those kinds of things. Like she's also trying to help the rainforest where she's from, all that kind of stuff. So she, for me, was a good fit for temperance. Like she has this wild side, but she also has this very low key, calm manner about her. Now, the most interesting card is the devil. And here I would like to know, who would you pick for the devil? Because, we have a few bad guys in the story, but which one do you see as a perfect fit for the devil? Sip, sip, everyone. This is very sweet today. Because I was deciding between a couple characters. I actually have like 3 different versions here that I crossed out before I came to the one that I ended up choosing. Any ideas? Any takers? Okay. So for the devil, based on their behavior, based on the books, and also in comparison to the Mormon religion and everything, this is my devil, Edward. Because, like I said, he takes away Bella's free will. The only time that Bella gets her agency back is after she's been changed. Not before that. Edward will make the decisions for her. He calls it protecting her, but he's stalking her. He decides where she gets to go. And all these things that he does, like even with Alice together, like when Alice tells him, hey, she's going to see Jacob, he's going to disable the car. And also, he tells her that he's never going to hurt her. But then, flash forward to the birthday party, she didn't want the party. They made her have the party because he also doesn't say no to Alice because Alice is his favorite. And so Alice gets to have the party, not Bella. Then the whole paper cut thing happens. And talking about plot holes would take up an entire segment of itself, like an hour. This is not just a Swiss cheese at this point anymore. This is like a whole bag of holes tightly strung together by a little bit of cheese in between. Like there's so much going on. But like after the party, he then decides, okay, yeah, no. And then so he already knows in Midnight Sun when they have this conversation after the accident that should he ever leave her behind, she is going to act like she did in New Moon. Alice already knew that. Like once he gets involved with her, that's it. Like she's hooked. And so acting like her fix and taking that away, making her go cold turkey, he did that to her, knowing that he would do that. So he was just interested in his own thing. And no, I'm not doing readings. I'm actually talking about Twilight today. Thanks for being here. And so, yeah, for all those reasons, I see him as the devil. And yeah, I have another version for the devil card. Like my other choices were Aro, the Volturi as a whole, or Victoria, but then I was like, nah, these three, any of them, could also be on the devil card, or this entire triangle can be on the devil card. Because they're all so addicted to this whole thing. They could get out of it if they wanted to, but they choose not to. So Bella is also like whatever Edward is doing to Bella, Bella is doing to Jacob. So she knows that Jacob is interested in her. And when Edward is out of the picture, she is sending all the right signals. She's flirting with him. They're physically close. They're almost kissing. He wants to hold hands. And, she is, sitting in his arms and snuggling up to him and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of touching. And so there's like all these things that Bella is also doing with Edward. Like she's doing that with Jacob. And so this whole thing is just toxic all around, which is why all three of them could be on the devil card. And Jacob, he's also being a bit of a jerk sometimes. And we see this like when he finds out that, like after he has changed into a wolf and then he finds out, okay, after graduation, that's it. That's when we see him being abusive as well. Like in the movie, it is shown by him throwing the tool against the wall. That's the beginning of physical abuse. And we even see this in the wedding when he's like grabbing her and he's like, you can't be serious about this. Like those are the beginnings of physical abuse. And he could potentially do something that Sam did with Emily. Like if he loses his temper in just a split second, it could be more than just the face. So yeah, no problem. Right. You could also put Alice on this card because she's the one pulling the strings behind this, like I said. So there's a lot of choices for the devil card, but I'm mainly going to stick with Edward. But there's other possibilities. Now, the next one is the Tower card. For that one, I chose James because James brings that whole chaos and he brings it more than once. We learn after or when he's with Bella in the dance studio that Alice was actually his singer. So when Alice was in the mental institution back then, when she was still human, James came across her, smelled her blood, and it was, like he said to Bella, even sweeter than Bella's smell. So one theory that I got with all of this is I wonder if the people that have abilities also have the special smelling blood. I wonder if that is part of that, how they could get recognized, so to speak. I wonder. Maybe. Because Alice has that ability, Bella has an ability, they're both singers. I don't know. I mean, it's never really talked about with the others. And if that's a reason why they're changed, or if the ones with like the really big, powerful stuff have that extra blood, I don't know. Just a theory. But yeah, so when James found Ellis, the groundskeeper of the mental asylum was protecting Ellis by changing her. He was a vampire himself. And so he ended up fighting James, and James killed him. And then he knew that Ellis is already in transformation. So he said, okay, I'm going to check back in like 10 years or so and then see what happens. And so it's kind of weird that knowing that backstory, and it's already talked about in Twilight in the dance studio, that James did not have a bigger reaction to Ellis in the baseball scene in the meadow. That's kind of weird. Maybe Stephanie Meyer just forgot about that. But actually he would have recognized Ellis. He would have recognized her. And so yeah. He also, by biting Bella, brought that whole chaos. Like there was so much going on in that dance studio because he was chasing after Bella and everything changed. And the whole, hospital, everything, they rescued Bella and got the poison out of her, all of that. But everything from that moment on changed. So, and it all was because of James. So for that, he's that big tower moment. True Blood fairies. I've never watched True Blood, so I don't know. But yeah, I think it would be interesting to hear more about when the others were changed with their abilities. But then again, if the vampire coming across a singer, they usually just suck them dry. They don't just take one bite and then wait for that to change. So I don't know, maybe it doesn't work. Okay, next we have the star card. Hello? This one. That one I think is also an easy choice because Star, Hope, Renesmee, Next Generation, Hybrid, and they want her to bring in the new dawn, the new age, and everything. Also, she is partnered up with one of the Quileutes, and so she is the one making sure that the Cullens can't be harmed anymore because of the imprinting. Also, fun fact, the imprinting thing is also very negative for the Quileutes. First of all, it only happens to the males. The males imprint on a female human or something. And Leah gets the shortest end of all the sticks because of her wolf transformation. She doesn't get her period anymore, and therefore she can't even have kids. Nobody knows, and Stephanie Meyer doesn't really specify that if once she stops being a wolf, her body would go back to being human and she would have her period again. But as far as we know, she's in menopause already. So her whole childbearing years and all that, that's over because of the wolf thing. And with the imprinting, Stephanie Meyer says this in an interview on the DVD and one of those extras. The imprinting means that the wolf will do everything that the person they imprint on says. So Jacob is completely bound to Renesmee, as are all the other wolves that are imprinted on members of their tribe, like Paul with one of Jacob's sisters, and Quill with that little girl, and Sam with Emily, and all that stuff. Whatever the human wants or whatever the woman wants, the man has to do. He has to make her happy, and he doesn't have a choice about it. And in that one scene on the beach, we see that where Jake says, yeah, the weirdest part is their genes are telling them that they're happy about it. And Stephanie Meyer even says this, yeah, they don't have a choice. So they're bound by all of that. And also, if or when the human dies, the wolf imprinted person also dies. They cannot survive if the imprinting object of theirs is dead. So when Emily dies, Sam will die with her. When Jake's sister dies, Paul will die. When that little girl, I forgot what her name was, dies, Quill will die. Done. That's how Stephanie Meyer wrote it. Another really weird thing of this whole racism thing against the Native American. Like, they really don't come off good in these stories. But for Jake, the good thing is Renesmee is immortal, so he doesn't have to share that faith. So I guess for Stephenie Meyer, this was really just one way of, she knew at this point that fans really loved Jacob and she had to give him a happy end, and this was the only way out. He had to be with an immortal so that he wouldn't die. Who cares about the other wolves, right? So this was, I guess, the only way out for Stephenie Meyer. Now for the moon, I chose Rosalie. And she's also been through some dark times. Her wishes were never fulfilled. She wanted to be a wife, a mother, and she wanted to have the human life that Bella has, which is why she is so against Bella becoming a vampire and voting no and all of that. And so she's also the only one in the Cullen family that has never, like Carlisle, tasted human blood. She even said that because when she was going after the people that did this to her, like her ex-fiance and his friends, after they abused her and left her for dead, she went after them for revenge. And she was very brutal with them, but she made sure that she would not drink from them because she didn't want anything of these people in her system or on her body. So it was more like probably torturing them towards a heart attack or something, like using fear tactics and making them freak out. But she never had a sip from them. And then 2 years later, she found Emmett and everything was different after that. But she never slipped up. She stuck to the diet, also like the good Mormon daughter. You do what daddy says, you obey. The boys, they can have their slip-ups, but the daughter has to obey. So everyone else in the family, Edward, Ellis, Jasper, Emmett, even Esme, they have all not stuck to the rules. They all broke them, but she did. And so she has a wild and a tame side to her, and she's got a long way to go. She's been through the ringer. So for that, I chose her for the moon. For the sun card, I picked Jacob because he's even described as the sun, I mean, with his body temperature and everything, but he has a very sunny disposition. He can have a very sunny disposition next to Emmett. And so he has a kind of childlike innocence about him. He is very optimistic, idealistic, romantic, all these things. And he will also go to battle for you. So there's just so much in this character that, like, for me, I was always Team Jacob. But not in terms of ending up with Bella, but just like I want him to have a good story. So I chose him for the sun because he just seems the most fitting out of all the characters. Next we have the Judgment card. For that, I chose Marcus. Fun fact, here's another weird casting choice. Caius, the blonde guy, is actually in the story in his 40s. And Marcus right here is actually, 19 years old. So he is just as old as Emmett would be, but they age switched them in the movies for whatever reason. I don't know. And so Jamie Campbell Bower probably could have played Marcus, and this guy here could have played Caius, but they went with this way. I don't know why. Like, makes no sense. And even Aro is barely 20. Oh, and you're gonna keep sleeping, right? My cat just woke up. And so I chose him for the Judgment card because out of all the Volturi, the 3 Volturi, the main ones, he's got the best head on his shoulders. When he got together with Aro's sister, he was like feeling happy and content and everything. And they actually wanted to leave the Volturi, but then Aro secretly killed his own sister, and he did that to make Marcus stay. And then they have another one in the Volturi, I think one of the other wives, that can make him stay in that whole bond situation. And then there's another one who can make him happy, but he chose not to do that because he wants to remember his partner. And so for all of that, and for him like not wanting to play around as much as Caius and Aro do, I picked him for the judgment. He's also seen a lot of stuff. Like they have been up against the Romanian coven, and so they won. So yeah, he's also part of the enforcer, like the law enforcer team, all of that. So for that, I chose him for the judgment card. And for the final card for the world, I chose the entire Cullen family because that was Bella's goal all along. Her life is now complete, being part of this coven, having her own family, not having to sacrifice anything. That's another thing that is part of the Mormon religion, this whole idea of sacrifice and redemption, and everything is talking about the soul, which is also what plays a big part in the story. But I don't really see what kind of sacrifices Edward made, even though he talked about, yeah, you've made so many sacrifices and all that. Like, no, what exactly did he sacrifice? He always did what he wanted to do. He didn't sacrifice squat, you know. And Bella, yeah, she had to sacrifice a lot. So yeah, thanks. So yeah, that's what. I wanted to take this one off. Yeah, so that is my pick for the court cards and the majors. And I can see we're already half an hour over the hour, but I don't care. It's Twilight. We're going to geek out about this. So, yeah. So if you read those books again, keep that whole Mormon aspect in mind and you will see it. Like I said, I have further stuff down in the description box where you can see that a little bit more, like that cartoon that describes really quickly what they actually believe in. Then the ex-Mormon watching the South Park episode about Mormonism and reacting to it, which puts things in perspective, which will also kind of talk about some things that you see in Twilight. And the website to the Quileutes to find out more about them. And also the article where they changed the introduction to this book, saying that, well, not saying anything about the Native Americans anymore, whereas here they claimed that the Lamanites, the ancestors of the Native Americans, came from Jerusalem, which DNA completely ruled out. So, and if you also want a little bit more about like Mormon life and everything in modern pop culture, there was this TV show 2 years ago, like in 2022 on Peacock, called A Friend of the Family, with like in one of the main roles starring Colin Hanks, the son of Tom Hanks. He was the father of the family, and it was never explicitly said that they're Mormon, I believe. I don't think the name Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints ever came up. It just said that they go to church and everything, and there was even talk of excommunication because of what happened. But they were Mormons. This is based on a real story. And that story in particular shows how gullible Mormons can be, because they already live to a fantasy world. And so that can give you more of an insight into like family dynamics and belief system. Another thing like this is a movie that I have seen when I was doing some research for my university project. Ja, du hast Essen. I came across this movie. This one came out in 2005. And the director of this basically put his own story into a fictional movie. And yeah, the guy right here, he plays the Mormon missionary, which is what the director himself was going through, who finds out that he's not actually interested in girls, but in guys. And he plays the love interest. And I don't know if he looks familiar to anyone. His name is, what is it? Wes something. Wes Ramsey. And to someone my age, he might be better known as the adult oldest son of Piper and Leo from Charmed. Yes, that's this guy here, the Playboy. Very good movie. And it also shows what really happens behind the scenes in the whole Mormon thing when someone says that they're interested in same sex. Conversion therapy. That's all I'm going to say. And there's even this theory of Carlisle when he lived with the Volturi for 20 years that he and Aro had a thing going on. But based on Mormon religion, I would rule that out. I don't think that actually happened. And, or at least he was trying not to make Aro angry. But I don't think that that was really a thing. I don't know if that's really canon, but it wouldn't happen in Mormon religion. And since Carlisle is like Joseph Smith, he wouldn't go there. He might play along to not get killed, but he wouldn't go there. So, yeah. But, I mean, as much as I say all these things about the Mormon church, like, I have no problem with members of the Mormon church. Like, when I first encountered the missionaries, there's actually a story behind all of this, like how I got to that. It was April 3rd, 2001. And I was at a point where I was mentally really down. Like I didn't know where to go from there. And I didn't have a way out of whatever situation I was in. And so on that April 3rd, I think it was a Tuesday, I was sitting in the bathtub. I was crying because I couldn't anymore. And I was praying. And I was praying really hard that someone would come and help me because I need help. I can't do this by myself. And I knew that simply just talking to my mom wouldn't do anything because, like, how's she going to help me? I needed some help from outside. And exactly 1 week later, on the 10th of April, the doorbell rang. I was just home from school. It was in the afternoon. My mom was still at work. And I went to the intercom and I asked who's there. And in an American accent, I heard them say in German, "Yeah, hi, we're from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we would like to talk to you about our church." And I didn't have to think twice because ever since 8th grade, I was waiting for the Americans to come and visit me. And I only opened the door because I knew they were from America. Because previously, I had been a foreign exchange student in America. And that was part of the whole, like, depression thing for me because I missed that life that I had during that 1 year and the connections that I had made. And I never really got out of that in a way. So I was kind of moping around a little bit like Bella was in New Moon. And so, yeah, I let them in and they gave me this exact book. This is the very first one that I got. And I even, in this book, I still have the picture of the two boys. I'm going to cover up their faces for privacy. But yeah, these are the missionaries. The first ones that I met, they gave me this book. I'm also not going to reveal their names for privacy reasons. But yeah, so they stayed for 10 minutes and we had a connection pretty early on because I said, okay, I was in America for a while. They were from America. They also said they had an afternoon English class once a week where they would help people, get better at English. And I jumped on that. Like I went there every Tuesday at 7 p.m. for English class. And most of the time I was the only one there. And we just got to talk English and talk about America and all that kind of stuff. And that was part of my healing process. I needed that. I never had any intention of joining the church, but I was interested in learning about it. And so during that first visit, what happened was, like, after 10 minutes, they asked if they could come back. And of course I said yes. And before they left, they wanted to pray with me. And so one of them was the one who started saying the prayer because he had been in Germany longer, so he knew the language better. The other one was just fresh off the plane, pretty much. And so he was very shy. And so we just closed our eyes and we were on the floor, kneeling there. And the moment he started praying, I don't know if any of you have seen Dragon Ball. In God's Palace, there's this room where they go to train, where 1 year in our world, one day in our world is a year inside that hyperbolic time chamber. That's what it looked like for me. You go in there and then it's just all white. You don't see anything else. So in that moment when he started praying, I was sitting there and everything around me was white. And I could see him in front of me. The other one wasn't there anymore, but he was sitting in front of me. He was praying as he was in the real world. And suddenly there was this huge, massive beam of light in white and light blue coming out of him, shooting up. And it was big, and it did something to me. Like in that moment, I knew, okay, this is the answer to my prayer. So whatever it is they have to say, I'm going to listen. Doesn't mean I'm going to join them, but they have part of an answer that I'm looking for, or maybe the answer. And so, yeah, this whole thing, like, it moved me so much. And the prayer wasn't even long, but the entire time I just saw that light coming out of him. And so when he was done with the prayer, I told him what I just saw. And I told him about a week ago how I was praying for someone to come and help me. And his eyes started tearing up. He's like, oh my God, like this morning we were praying, and they do that every morning, but we were praying on where to go. And we looked at the map and we had a strong feeling about your address. And my mom lives in a place where, like, the apartments, like one entrance has like 6 apartments connected to it, and I can hear when they ring the doorbell in one of the neighbors' apartments. They really only rang my bell. And from there, they went to a completely different house down the block. Like, they didn't, like the Jehovah's Witnesses going door to door. No, they didn't do that. And so he said, yeah, we had a strong feeling that someone here was in need of help. So I believe that this was really brought together from an upstairs power. And this is also why I believe that it doesn't really matter what religion we call it, or what religion we belong to, because at the end of the day, it's all the same. They're all connected. Each one might experience like different facets of how they practice it, but at the end of the day, it's all connected. Because what are the odds of a witch praying for help and being served with missionaries? You know, and in what world would that happen? Like, normally you would expect something witchy to happen, but I got sent Mormon missionaries. And like, yeah, this whole experience was amazing. And to this day, this particular missionary and I were still friends. He lives in Utah, and I still have to go and visit him with his family. Like, he even visited me twice in Germany. Once while I was in college, he came to visit with a friend, and when I was in university, he came to visit me with his wife. And they have 3 kids, which I have yet to meet, but yeah. So this just showed me, like, it doesn't matter what religion is talking to me. What they did is they got me out of this dark hole that I was in, and they started to build me up again by talking about their faith and how much it helped them, regardless of what it is and if I agree with it or not. They brought me back out into the light. And the entire, like, this was, I think June 20th was the last day that I saw him as a missionary, and then he was transferred to another city. And so this was like shortly before my graduation, like shortly, like my finals, like the original stuff happened in April. And then in like May, I was having my final exams for graduation. And so that was a difficult time on its own. And so they made it so that I was actually strong enough to go through that. They helped me to, you know, come out of my shell again, enjoy things again, start smiling again, being happy, because before that, sure, I had friends. I had a great group of friends, but it just, I was more of a shell of myself. Like, I was not really living. I was just existing on autopilot in a way. And so they did that for me. And once he left, and then there was another missionary, I got along with all of them very great. And I decided to, spend more time and learn more about it, even though I knew I wasn't going to do that, like join them. But then, so in end of June, beginning of July, my graduation happened. 1 month later, my grandma died. She died on August 10th. So that was like exactly 4 months after I had met them. My grandma died. And that was the darkest day of my existence because on that day, a part of me died with her. She was the most influential person in my life. And had it not been for those missionaries, especially the first ones, and that particular friend, I don't know if I would still sit here. I don't know if I would have actually made it through that time. And yeah, I'm still getting emotional about it. But they built me up so that I was strong enough to go through that time. And my grandma, she died on a Friday. And one of my friends from high school, she was about to convert into the church. And she moved away to a different city for her college stuff. And she asked me to go on Sunday to church for her since she couldn't go. And she knew about my grandma. She said, I think this could really help you. Just, go there, no strings attached. Just sit there, listen, see what it does. And I did. And so that's when I went to the church for the first time with the Mormons. And of course, they took very good care of me. Church services back then were 3 hours. So from 9 to noon, you were there for 3 hours, different segments and all that. So, yeah, like the missionaries, they were there. They were by my side whenever I needed them. The members of the church, like I actually went to school in my graduation class. I had two Mormons that I didn't even know were Mormons. I found that out as soon as I was being taught by the missionaries because they don't talk about it at school. And so, yeah, the church in my hometown basically consists of two big families with lots and lots of relatives, but they took me in, no questions asked. And so I was not ready to simply start college after graduation with all that's happened. So I took 1 year to heal. And in that entire year, I went to church with them, maybe not every Sunday, like I stopped after a while, but they invited me to family functions like family barbecues, which they also don't do with outsiders. They invited me to church things like church dances, bike trips, whatever else. So I was really fully immersed into church life without being a member. After that year, the bishop kind of gave me the talk like, yeah, you either join or you kind of have to leave because, we can't give you all the benefits without you committing to it. And I understood that. And since I was going to college anyway, it was kind of like perfect timing. But for that 1 year that I needed to heal, they accepted me into their family. So I got to see what Mormon life means on a day-to-day basis, besides just what the missionaries are selling you. And those things are a bit different because the missionaries are not telling you everything right away. But I have to say, regardless of that religion, those people were so nice to me. And they have welcomed me with open arms. They listened to me, to whatever I had to say. Of course, I never said outright that I was a witch. They would have banned me right away. But yeah, so they gave me the time and the space to heal. And I will be forever grateful for that year and for that experience. Sorry, because I needed that. And that to me just shows that love is the biggest part in all of this. And it doesn't really matter what someone has as a religion, it doesn't at all. And so, yeah, like even if I absolutely don't agree with this and I will never join, but I treasure that friendship with this former missionary a lot, and I will never forget what they did for me. This was They literally saved me. Yeah. Religion is just an institution and it has to do with money, and spirituality is in the heart. It's something that you live. It has nothing to do with paying 10% to the church or having a temple recommend so you can get into heaven or not, or having tattoos or drinking coffee or whatever. Like spirituality is right here. And yeah, so the Mormons have helped me immensely. All of them, like that entire ward in my hometown, which isn't a big ward. They had, I think, like around 100 members or so at that time. And so everyone knew everyone in there. And yeah, this was a very, very good year for me. And I needed that before then going to college and, starting to pursue my future and career and all of that. So without that, if they hadn't found me, I don't know what would have happened. I like already being in a big dark hole and then losing my grandma on top of it. That could have been it for me. I don't know if I would have made it out of that. So yeah. Okay, to quote Renee, enough with the heavy. Yeah, so this was a very, very cool thing for me to try to bring Twilight and tarot together. And eventually I might look into like what can be done with the minors, not right away. But yeah, I still enjoy the books, even with all of the problems that are in here. I still enjoy them, and I listen to one part of either book every night to fall asleep, because that has become my ritual for over a year now, maybe 1.5 years at this point. And yeah, it just helps me fall asleep, and sometimes it chases away the bad dreams. Sometimes, depending on what chapter I listen to, I guess. Yeah. Like earlier today when I took a nap because I had a really bad migraine, and I put on the first chapter of Midnight Sun, where he was talking about going up against that entire classroom just to get to Bella. And I did have a nightmare, so maybe I shouldn't have done that. But yeah. So it is definitely still one of my favorite fictional stories, and I like the books. I will always do. And I saw that they will actually release some 20th anniversary editions with like different designs, like with flowers and stuff everywhere, in a box that also has like Edward and Bella sitting in the meadow kind of thing. So that's why the flowers are everywhere. I haven't found that on Amazon just yet. So I think that might be released a little bit later. Thank you. So yeah, I'll keep my eyes open for that. I don't know if I'm going to buy another book set because I have all of them. Well, I have the 5 Twilight books. I don't have the Bree Tanner book. I do have the director's notebook that came out, and I do have 2 other books about Twilight and like psychology and philosophy and all of that, which is also very interesting. And yeah, this, like, if I had still been in university, like if I had known all of this stuff, if I put it together earlier, that would have been a great final exam for my English literature, like American studies thing. But yeah, I wasn't that far into the whole topic back then when I was doing that class. So yeah. Okay. Now we've been, oh, it's almost 2 hours. So tarot by the double hour today. But yeah. So if you have any, like for those of you who are watching this back, if you have any other ideas for what kind of characters you would put on the majors, let me know in the comments, because maybe some of those ideas that you have fit even better than mine, and I completely overlooked something. So let me know. And like I said, there is some other information in the description box if you want to know more about the Quileutes or more about the Mormon Church. You can find all of that down there. Also, check out Corinne's channel. That's her name, Corinne with a C. She does those really amazing Twilight movies where it sounds like she's bashing everyone, but she's got a point. So, yeah. Thanks to everyone who was here today. Thank you, Carla, for sticking with me through this live. And there will not be an episode next Saturday because family is here and we've got renovations to do. So, looking forward to that because in 2 weeks, I will be streaming from my new office/YouTube studio. So, I'm really excited that that is finally happening. So, yeah, no video or no live stream next Saturday. But then in 2 weeks again, I'll be back with another episode. I don't know what topic I'm going to do. If you have any topic ideas that you would like me to talk about in relation to tarot, you can also leave a comment in the comment section and I'll have a look if that is something that I can do. And otherwise, I want to wish you all a very good rest of your weekend, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.